And welcome everyone. Together with Iulia Ion and Matthew Smith, I did this work on replicating a study on security practice and advice. What we did was replicating a SOUPS paper from 2015 by Iulia Ion, Rob Reeder, and Sunny Consolvo, No One Can Hack My Mind, comparing expert and non-expert security practices. This study was about self-reported security behavior and rating of advice. And what we did was replicated it as closely as possible, but we found a slight flaw in study methodology, which we also improved upon. So, little spoiler about the results. Most topics are still relevant. The details have changed. And our improvement in methodology allows us to identify concrete fields of action where we as a usable security community can hook into. So the original study consisted of a 4-part survey, which was constructed after a pilot study with security experts. The study consisted of free text entries on security advice and practice, then some close-ended questions on own security and privacy habits, and the main part was rating pre-formulated advice targeted at non-expert users. The authors published 2 different versions, one for non-experts, which was hosted on MTurk, and one survey for experts, which were recruited via the Google security blog. So they found out that the only common ground were strong passwords, and in general, the expert advice that was deemed as valuable could be grouped into software updates, antivirus, password management, and mindfulness. As you can probably expect, non-expert practices received mixed rating by experts. I will go into detail later. And 3 major fields of practice were not followed by non-experts, although the experts recommended it. It was installing system updates, using a password manager, and activating 2-factor auth. So regarding the methodology, this first blob of text is an actual question, and it asks experts to rate advice in terms of both effectiveness and realism, how likely the user can follow it. As you may notice, this is a compound question, which is usually not advised according to good survey design practices. So we did a pre-study with interviews based on the survey at the CeBIT Trade Fair in 2018, which confirmed our worries that the participants had mixed up priorities and meanings, and were a bit confused by the question design. So we decided to test this in an A/B testing setup because we also wanted to test how the results replicate over time. We chose 2 expert groups, and the A group had the original study design with a compound question, and the B group received separate questions for effectiveness and realism. So we recruited our non-experts through MTurk with the same recruitment criteria as the original work. We also recruited the same number as the original authors. Our sample was slightly different, but mostly the same. We had about half the participants were female, about 80% were younger than 45, and 66% were employed full-time. The numbers in parentheses are from the original work. Expert recruitment turned out a bit more difficult since we didn't have access to the Google security blog. We asked for permission to post this for the sake of replication, but our request got denied, sadly. So we had to resort to social media and snowball sampling, which was mainly conducted through Twitter, Reddit, and topical mailing lists. So we only got 75 experts as opposed to 231, which the original authors could recruit. And 44 of those experts received the original design with the compound questions, and 31 experts were in the group B with the split questions. So expert population has also changed. The sample is slightly more female with 9%, which is still very sad. 79% of our expert participants were younger than 45, and 71% worked in industry. The location has also changed. I will come to that later. Because we had to recruit based on our personal contacts, the location was very EU heavy with about 70%. The original authors didn't report numbers on that in their paper, and they sadly weren't able to share the raw data with us. So we only know about the US portion, which was 47% in the original work and 27% in our replication. We also lowered the bar a bit for being counted as an expert. It was a close-ended question with brackets of experience, and in the original study, only experts with 5 or more years of experience were categorized as actual experts, but we lowered that to include also the bracket of 1 to 5 years of experience in security or related field, since we didn't see any differences in the data. So this is the first part. What are the top 3 things you do to stay safe online? The dark bars are the experts and the white bars are the non-experts. On the left is the original study. And when you look closely, you see that although the order has changed a bit, the most important topics are still there. Using a password manager is the most important security practice as of today, according to our experts. Slight changes in wording result from different coding. We coded these open answers with 2 from our 3 authors, and we built the codes new, so we only aligned them with the original code book later on. So there might be differences in formulation or in coding, as we have summarized updates, and the original authors differentiated between system updates and application updates. Some practices have gone, such as deleting cookies or using Linux as a security advice, while others have emerged, most notably using script or ad blockers, which is in position 4, and using a VPN. However, nobody actually explained what kind of a VPN and how it should improve security. This is the result of the compound question. It's okay if you cannot read everything. I just wanted to show the differences. The left battery is from the A group, which received the original questions with the compound question, and the middle and the right group is from the B group, which received separate questions for effectiveness and realism. So while you'll see that effectiveness overall aligns to how good is the advice to the general question, we see lots of fluctuation regarding realism. For example, we're having unique passwords, which is, oh, I don't have a cursor here, which is the topmost in the upper middle half, where realism ratings were rather low compared to high effectiveness ratings. And when looking further at these different scores, we could identify 4 fields of action where effectiveness was rated high, but realism that a user can follow it was rated rather low. So what we did was determine the difference of the means, the mean ratings for effectiveness and realism. And we see that the largest gaps are in the field of passwords, which is not very surprising. Unique and strong passwords are considered effective but hard to follow. And also using password managers. This is more interesting because password managers have been around for a bit, but experts still don't see them as fit for the general population. So there might be some usability issues left there. So if you plan to work on password managers, this could be a good field for actual improvements. Another thing is two-factor authentication, which was also rated as very effective for security, but not very realistic that people could follow it. This is, again, unclear. Maybe the experts rated it like that because two-factor authentication is not available for each account, for every account. But maybe they also thought that setting it up and using it was a burden too high for non-expert users. We don't know this. And I'm happy that there are so many posters about two-factor authentication research out there. So apparently people are working on it, which is a good sign. Other fields were, in the field of mindfulness, as the original authors called it, being careful with links, not opening attachments, and not entering passwords after clicking on links in emails. These pieces of advice were also rated effective, but not very realistic. Some expert participants added in free text comment fields that it's basically part of their work that they receive email from unknown people and that they open attachments from them, because that's just how online work life works sometimes. So there's also this gap. I'm not sure if this is an issue we can solve technically, but yeah, it's up for grabs. And another thing was updating applications. You maybe remember that in the first figure in 2015, there were application updates and system updates. However, the system updates have disappeared from our participants' priority list. This might be because Windows has rolled out automatic system updates in the meantime that are not disableable. I don't know if this is a word. So this issue seemed to have been toned down, but application updates are still a thing. Windows 10 has also tried to tackle this issue by introducing a Windows App Store, which allows App Store-like centralized update infrastructure, but the adoption rates don't seem that high. Okay, although we can learn a lot, there's still some limitations on this work. Of course, our expert sample is not only different in time, but also in recruitment and as such in demographics, especially regarding location. We thus cannot say if the changes that we observed are because times have changed or because our population is now more European. I highly welcome any research on cross-culture or global security expert participant groups and their different attitudes based on tech culture, because security practices are obviously a very cultural coined thing. Yeah, so that's that. We also lowered the bar for expert experiences because we suffered from recruitment issues. We also tried to contact other security blogs besides the Google Online Security blogs, but we were turned down. So yeah, we lowered the bar a bit, but as I already said, we saw no difference between 1 to 5 years of experience and 5 or more years of experience. And of course, the MTurk population has likely changed too, and we don't know what else contributes to that, how much the observed effects are a result of the changing technology landscape or the changing MTurk population. And last but not least, all data is self-reported as it was in the original study, and we know that people likely overestimate themselves in such scenarios. So, to summarize, we replicated a study from 2015 on security practices and advice and found out that our findings largely aligned with previous work. However, we could identify new trends like script and ad blocking software that also potentially handles cookie issues, which were present in 2015 but not in our replication. We also improved on the study design and therefore could identify 4 key areas that still need work from research and or practitioners: software passwords, two-factor authentication, updates, and handling links and attachments. And yeah, all these topics were also present in the original study, which kind of shows that there hasn't been that much change, which is maybe a bit bad because research has advanced and practice, not really. I'm not sure. So if you work on these topics, feel free to look into that. Feel free to prioritize your work on password managers, on 2FA, and stuff like that. So that's obviously where action is needed. Thank you very much, and also thanks again to Iulia Ion, Rob Reeder, and Sunny Consolvo for supporting us so much with our replication efforts. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rob Reeder of Ion, Reeder, and Consolvo. So I'll start by apologizing for all the things we couldn't provide for you for the replication. It's super cool that you did the replication, and to see the things that changed is really cool to me. I wonder what you think is the potential to have, I know how hard it was to do the original study, you know how hard it was to do this replication. Do you think that there's potential to improve the efficacy of cranking through the methodology so that this could be replicated on a semi-regular basis by whomever is able? Because we always thought advice would be changing over time, and your results suggest it is, even in just 4 years. What do you think is the potential for that to happen?
I think it's a good idea to make this more of a longitudinal thing. And I could say from my experience that the MTurk study was pretty straightforward and the evaluation, but expert recruitment was very hard and very difficult. So it would be great, yes, to have an MTurk for security experts, which we could draw from, but I know that this is not very realistic. Yeah, I would appreciate that, and I would be also happy to contribute to that. But yeah, I see the problem in expert recruitment.
Hi, that was really interesting. I'm Pilar from 1Password. And I was wondering if you looked at all into what experts and non-experts consider strong passwords, because I have a feeling that the intersection is pretty slim in there, even if they think they're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, great question, thank you. So we were kind of restricted to the original study and our methodology, but I know that there were some free text comments on that. I'm not sure if any on password specifically are in the paper, but I can look them up for you and send them towards you.
Thank you.
Hey, Dan Cosley from Cornell and NSF again. So I wanted to ask about the realisticness thing and whether it's really, I mean, I'm down with usability and all, right? But do you think people rated it as not realistic because password managers and two-factor authentication aren't usable, or that they didn't think that they could convince people to do it, right?
Thanks. Actually, we don't know from the methodology we used. We also don't know whether, whether the compound rating, how much it was influenced by realism and how it was influenced by effectiveness. A combined rating of 3 could be a 5 in effectiveness and a 1 in realism, or the other way around, or both at 3. This is still a thing that we don't know. There definitely needs to be further research on why these things aren't deemed as realistic. So yeah, that's what I also highlighted and tried to motivate people to.